The conference room aboard the UHS Valiant fell silent as the final seconds of the transmission played. Ambassador Chen Wei sat motionless, her hands gripped so tightly on the armrests that her knuckles had gone white. Around the massive oval table, 17 fleet admirals, 4 intelligence directors, and the entire Human Defense Council watched the screen with expressions carved from stone. The holographic display showed a young woman, barely 22, her face covered in dust and blood. Behind her, New Haven's capital city burned with flames that reached into the clouds. The ground shook constantly, making the image shake and blur. "My name is Sarah Mitchell," the woman said, her voice surprisingly steady despite the tears cutting tracks through the grime on her cheeks. I was a teacher at New Haven Primary. The aliens came 3 hours ago. They didn't try to communicate. They didn't ask us to surrender. They just started firing from orbit. Another explosion rocked the building she was hiding in. Chunks of ceiling crashed down around her, but she didn't flinch. "Mom, Dad, if you're seeing this, I'm sorry I won't make it home for your anniversary. Tell Tommy I'm proud of him for getting into medical school." Her voice cracked, but she pushed forward. "They're killing everyone, the children, the elderly, everyone. I've been hiding in the school's basement, but I can hear them burning through the levels above me. I found this emergency beacon in the supply room. I don't know if anyone will get this message, but you need to know what happened here." Sarah held up a small device to the camera. "I managed to hack into one of their communication frequencies. They're called the Zytharians. This was deliberate. They're laughing about it. They call us the soft ones. They think we're weak because New Haven didn't have military defenses. We're a farming colony. We grew food. We had schools and parks and families. The building shook again. More violently this time. Dust poured from the ceiling. "Please," Sarah whispered, looking directly into the camera. "Don't let them forget us. Don't let this be for nothing." New Haven was home to 43,000 people. We had names. We had lives. We mattered. The transmission cut to static. No one in the conference room moved for a long moment. Then Admiral James Rodriguez, the highest-ranking military officer in human space, stood up slowly. He was a man who had served for 42 years, who had seen combat on 16 different worlds, who had negotiated peace treaties with 7 alien species. His hands were steady as he placed them flat on the table. "How many survivors?" he asked quietly. Director Sarah Kemp from Intelligence responded, her voice hollow. "None, sir. The Zytharians spent 6 hours systematically destroying every structure on the planet. They used thermal weapons to ensure complete annihilation. By the time our nearest patrol ship arrived, New Haven was gone. The only reason we have this transmission is because Sarah Mitchell used a quantum-entangled emergency beacon. The message was instantaneous, but our ships were 3 days away at maximum jump speed. And the Zytharians? Their fleet retreated into their territory, 12 heavy cruisers. According to our long-range sensors, they're celebrating, sir. Our intelligence picked up their public broadcasts. They're calling it the culling of vermin. They plan to submit a formal declaration to the Galactic Council claiming New Haven was harboring human military installations and posed a threat to their border security." "That's a lie," Ambassador Chen said, her voice cold as deep space. "New Haven was surveyed and approved by the Council. Every species in the galaxy knew it was a civilian colony. They don't care," Director Kemp replied. "The Zytharian Empire has been pushing boundaries for decades. They'd skirmished with the Centaurians, annexed 3 independent systems, and bullied smaller species into unfavorable trade agreements. The Council issues sanctions, they ignore them. This is different only in scale." Admiral Rodriguez walked to the massive window that overlooked Earth's orbital shipyards. Thousands of vessels hung in the darkness, from small patrol craft to massive dreadnoughts. The planet below glowed blue and white, beautiful and peaceful. 43,000 people who had been born on that world, or had chosen to leave it for a new life among the stars, were dead. "What does the Galactic Council say?" he asked. Ambassador Chen stood, her diplomatic composure cracking. "They're offering thoughts and concerns. The Tellurian delegation suggested we file a formal complaint. The Vrin asked us to consider the complexities of interstellar politics. The Zytharians have economic leverage over half the Council species. No one wants to risk their trade agreements. So we're alone in this. We're always alone in this, Admiral. The galaxy doesn't work like humanity hoped it would when we first reached the stars. There's no united federation, no space police, no justice system that applies equally to all species. There's only power, and those willing to use it. Rodriguez turned back to face the room. Then let me be very clear about what comes next. I'm recommending to the Human Defense Council that we invoke Article 7 of the Human Charter. Article 7 had never been invoked in the 200 years since humanity had left Earth. It was the last resort, the final option, the one policy that every human child learned about in school with a mixture of pride and horror. If any human colony, station, or settlement is subject to deliberate genocide, humanity will respond with total warfare until either the enemy surrenders unconditionally or is rendered completely incapable of future aggression. No negotiations. No mercy, no exceptions. Admiral, you're talking about war with a Tier 2 civilization, one of the other fleet commanders said. The Zytharian Empire controls 47 systems. They have resources we can't match. They have 47 systems, Rodriguez agreed. We have 300,000 warships. The silence that followed was different than before. This wasn't shock or grief. This was calculation. Humanity had spread slowly through the stars compared to other species. While the Zytharians had conquered aggressively, humans had built carefully. Every colony was supported, every station maintained, every settlement defended. But the real difference was in philosophy. Most alien species built a handful of large warships, massive vessels that required years to construct and were symbols of power as much as weapons of war. Humans had learned a different lesson from their history. They built smaller, faster, more numerous ships. They trained every colonist in basic defense. They maintained massive automated shipyards in every major system. And they never forgot the lessons of their own violent past. The Zytharians think we're soft because New Haven didn't fight back, Admiral Rodriguez continued. They think a farming colony represents all of humanity. They're about to learn the difference between choosing peace and being incapable of war. He activated the central holographic display. The galaxy appeared before them, a spiral of light and darkness. A red marker indicated New Haven, on the edge of human space. Beyond it, a vast swath of purple showed Zytharian territory. Direct to camp. I need every piece of intelligence we have on Zytharian military capabilities, fleet positions, industrial centers, and command structure. I want to know where every one of their ships is located, what weapons they carry, and who commands them. Yes, sir. Admiral Chen, begin mobilization of all reserve fleets. I want every mothballed ship brought back online, every shipyard running at maximum capacity. Call up the reserves. How far are we taking this, James? Admiral Chen asked quietly. Rodriguez pulled up another display. It showed Sarah Mitchell's face, frozen in that last moment before the transmission ended. Young, brave, terrified, doomed. The Zytharians wanted to send a message by destroying New Haven, he said softly. They wanted to show the galaxy that humans could be pushed around, that we're newcomers who should stay in our place. They wanted everyone to see that we're weak. He closed the image. We're going to send a different message. We're going to show the galaxy what happens when you murder 43,000 human beings. We're going to show them what humanity is truly capable of when we stop being civilized and remember how to be terrifying. Over the next 72 hours, humanity mobilized for war with a speed that shocked even its own military commanders. The call went out across all human colonies, stations, and settlements. Every reserve officer reported for duty. Every shipyard ceased civilian production and began manufacturing warships. Every factory retooled for military equipment. The Centaurian ambassador requested an emergency meeting with the Human Defense Council. Ambassador Chen met him in a private chamber aboard the Valiant. We've received reports of massive fleet movements, Ambassador Khalith said, his three eyes showing genuine concern. The Galactic Council is worried about escalation. Tell the Council they should have worried about escalation before 43,000 civilians were murdered, Chen replied coldly. The Zytharians claim New Haven was a military threat. The Zytharians are liars. Every species on the Council knows it. Your people know it. But no one wants to risk their economic arrangements to stand up for what's right. Keleth's skin flushed purple, a sign of distress in his species. Ambassador Chen, please understand our position. The Zytharian Empire is powerful. They control key shipping lanes, rare resources, and have military alliances with species that the Council cannot afford to alienate. Then the Council should stay out of our way. What are you planning? Chen stood, her face hard. We're planning to ensure that no species in this galaxy ever thinks it's acceptable to genocide a human colony again. We're planning to make an example so clear, so undeniable, that every civilization in this arm of the galaxy will remember what happens when you cross that line. The Council cannot support a war of aggression. We're not asking for your support. We're informing you as a courtesy. Humanity is invoking Article 7. Any species that interferes will be considered hostile. Any species that aids the Scytherians will share their fate. This is not a negotiation. Keleth left the meeting looking shaken. In the shipyards above Earth, Mars, Titan, and 50 other human worlds, the work continued day and night. Massive automated factories churned out fighters, frigates, destroyers, and cruisers. Ships that had been in reserve for decades were brought back online, their systems updated, their weapons upgraded. Admiral Rodriguez watched from the Valiant's command center as the fleet assembled. The holographic display showed a three-dimensional map of local space, and with each passing hour, more green markers appeared. Each marker represented a ship or a battle group. Each marker represented humanity's response to genocide. Current count? He asked. 247,000 warships are already in position or en route, his tactical officer reported. Another 60,000 will be ready within a week. We're exceeding the initial projection. Good. What about the Scytharians? They're scrambling. Intelligence reports indicate they didn't expect this level of mobilization. They're recalling their fleets from border regions and fortifying their core systems. Let them fortify. Let them prepare. Let them realize what's coming for them. A communication alert flashed. It was a priority signal from the Scytherian High Command requesting diplomatic contact. Rodriguez almost ignored it, but something made him accept the transmission. A Scytherian commander appeared on the screen, his scaled face showing no emotion. I am High Commander's Wrath of the Scytherian Imperial Fleet. We understand there have been some unfortunate misunderstandings regarding the incident at the colony designation New Haven. Misunderstandings, Rodriguez said flatly. Yes, our records indicate there may have been a targeting error. The Scytherian Empire is willing to discuss reparations and assurances that such errors will not be repeated in the future. Rodriguez stared at the alien commander for a long moment. You murdered 43,000 civilians, men, women, and children. You broadcast your celebration across your empire. You called them vermin. And now you want to call it a targeting error? We're offering you a peaceful resolution to this situation. Here's my resolution, High Commander. You have 7 days to evacuate every civilian from your military installations. After that, we're coming for them. We're coming for every warship, every base, every command center in your empire. And we're not going to stop until you surrender unconditionally or until you're incapable of ever threatening another human life. You're threatening war over a single colony? We're promising war over genocide. There's a difference. The Galactic Council will never support this aggression. We don't need their support. We just need them to stay out of our way. You cannot possibly believe you can defeat the Scytherian Empire. We are a Tier 2 civilization with centuries of military tradition. High Commander, let me tell you what I believe. I believe that you picked New Haven because it was defenseless. I believe you thought humanity would protest and file complaints and eventually accept some token compensation. I believe you fundamentally misunderstood who we are. He activated a display showing the assembled fleet. 300,000 warships, High Commander. That's more than the total military of the 10 largest species in the galaxy combined. We didn't build them to conquer anyone. We built them to make sure no one could ever do to us what you did to New Haven. You wanted to test human resolve? You're about to find out exactly how resolved we are. Admiral Rodriguez turned to his staff. Set course for Scytherian space, maximum jump speed. The fleet moves in 72 hours. Aye, sir. As the Valiant's crew rushed to prepare, Rodriguez stood alone at the observation window, looking out at the growing fleet. Somewhere in the distance, beyond the range of even the most powerful telescopes, was a patch of scorched earth that used to be New Haven. 43,000 graves that would never be dug. 43,000 families that would never be whole again. The galaxy was about to learn a lesson that humanity had learned long ago on Earth, written in the blood of 2 world wars and countless smaller conflicts. Peace is not the absence of the capacity for violence. Peace is the choice not to use it. And the Scytherians had just made that choice impossible. The jump through quantum space took 3 days. 3 days of eerie silence as 300,000 human warships traveled through a dimension where normal physics didn't quite apply, where time moved strangely, and where the only sound was the low hum of the drives that bent reality around each vessel. Captain Maria Santos stood on the bridge of the destroyer Relentless, watching her crew work with practiced efficiency. She was 41 years old, had been in the Navy for 23 years, and had never fired a weapon in anger. Like most of humanity's military, she had spent her career in peacekeeping, exploration support, and anti-piracy operations. The idea that they were heading into a full-scale war felt surreal. Captain, receiving tactical briefing from Fleet Command, her communications officer said, the holographic display activated showing Admiral Rodriguez. The transmission had been sent hours ago but was just reaching her ship now. In quantum space, real-time communication was impossible. All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez. In approximately 40 hours, we will exit quantum space at the edge of Cytharian territory. What happens next will define humanity's place in this galaxy for generations to come. I want every captain, every officer, every crew member to understand what we're doing and why. The display shifted to show New Haven before the attack. Green fields, small cities, children playing in parks. Sarah Mitchell's school, intact and full of life. The Cytharians believed they could murder our people without consequence. They believed the Galactic Council's politics would protect them. They believed we were soft, weak, unable to respond. They were wrong on every count. The image changed to show the aftermath. Scorched earth, melted cities, nothing left alive. We're not here for conquest. We're not here to become what they are. We're here to ensure this never happens again. Our rules of engagement are clear. Military targets only. Any Zytharian vessel that surrenders will be accepted. Any civilian population will be protected. But any military installation, any warship, any command center that resists will be destroyed completely. Rodriguez paused, his face grim. Some of you may question if this is right. Some of you may worry about the lives we'll take. Remember this. We offered peace. We built farming colonies, not invasion fleets. We asked for nothing but to be left alone. They chose to cross a line that should never be crossed. They chose genocide. What comes next is not on us. It's on them. The transmission ended. Captain Santos looked at her crew. Most of them were young, in their 20s and 30s. They had joined the Navy to see the stars, to be part of something larger than themselves, to protect the colonies. Now they were about to become part of the largest military operation in human history. Captain, private message from home, her communications officer said quietly. Santos stepped into her ready room and activated the personal terminal. Her daughter's face appeared, recorded days ago before they left Earth. Hi, Mum, Elena said, smiling but with tears in her eyes. I know you can't respond to this, but I wanted you to know that I understand why you have to go. I'm scared, but I'm also proud. My teacher, Mrs. Chen, she has family who knew people on New Haven. She told us about Sarah Mitchell today in class, about how brave she was at the end. Elena wiped at her eyes. Come home safe, okay? And, Mum, make them pay for what they did. Make sure everyone in the galaxy knows that you don't mess with humans. Santos sat in silence for a moment, then returned to the bridge. All stations prepare for quantum space exit. I want full combat readiness in 2 hours. Across the massive fleet, similar scenes played out. Crews making final preparations. Captains reviewing attack plans. Soldiers checking weapons they hoped they wouldn't need to use. And in the flagship Valiant, Admiral Rodriguez met with his senior staff for final planning. Intelligence update, Director Kemp said, projecting a map of Zytharian space. The Zytharians have consolidated their fleet around 3 main defensive points. Their capital system Zithar Prime, their main shipyard at Kelthros, and their military command center at Draxus Station. Combined, they have approximately 8,000 military vessels. 8,000 against 300,000, Admiral Chen noted. They must know they can't win a conventional fight. They're counting on the Galactic Council to intervene, Kemp replied. They've been sending emergency broadcasts to every major species, claiming we're planning genocide against their entire civilization. The Tellurians and the Vryn have issued statements calling for immediate ceasefire negotiations. They can issue all the statements they want, Rodriguez said. We're not stopping until the Cytharian military surrenders. Sir, there's something else, Kemp said hesitantly. Our deep space listening posts have picked up encrypted communications between the Catharians and the Kryl Confederation. The room went still. The Kryl were a powerful species, controlling nearly 100 systems. They were neutral in most conflicts, but fiercely protective of their interests. What kind of communications? We can't decrypt them fully, but the pattern suggests negotiations. The Krill have significant economic ties with the Zytharians. If they decide to intervene, then we'll deal with them too, Rodriguez said flatly. Make it clear through diplomatic channels that this is a human Zytharian matter. Any species that interferes will be considered hostile. We're not bluffing anymore. The fleet exited quantum space in perfect formation. 300,000 warships appearing simultaneously at the edge of Zytharian territory was a sight that would be remembered for centuries. The Zytharian border patrol, consisting of 200 light cruisers, immediately retreated deeper into their space, not even attempting to challenge the massive human fleet. All ships reporting ready status, the tactical officer announced. No hostile actions detected. Open a channel to Zytharian High Command, Rodriguez ordered. The screen flickered, and High Commander's wrath appeared again. This time his scaled face showed clear signs of stress. Admiral Rodriguez, the Zytharian Empire requests immediate negotiations. We are willing to discuss terms for... No, Rodriguez interrupted. You had your chance for negotiations before you murdered 43,000 civilians. Now you get terms, not negotiations. Surrender your military forces unconditionally, submit to war crimes tribunals, and dismantle your offensive capabilities. Those are the only terms. That's completely unacceptable. The Zytharian Empire has stood for over 1,000 years. We will not surrender to a species that has barely been in space for 2 centuries. Then, you'll fall to that species. You have 24 hours to begin evacuating civilians from your military installations. After that, we begin operations. The Galactic Council will stop this madness. The Galactic Council had their chance to stop madness when you attacked New Haven. They chose politics over justice. We choose justice over politics. 24 hours, High Commander. Rodriguez cut the transmission. The waiting began. Aboard the Relentless, Captain Santos watched the clock count down. Her crew was tense but professional. They had drilled for combat countless times, but this was different. This was real. Captain, receiving civilian evacuation signatures from Drax's station, sensors reported. Looks like they're taking the warning seriously. Good. Mark all civilian vessels as protected. Any ship that fires on evacuating civilians answers to me personally. The hours ticked by. Across Zytharian space, massive evacuation efforts began. Civilian transports fled from military bases. Families were loaded onto ships and sent away from the war zones. Some Zytharian military commanders protested, but most recognized the futility of keeping civilians in harm's way. On Earth, billions of people watched the broadcasts. The major news networks had reporters embedded with the fleet, and for the first time in human history, an entire planet watched their military prepare for war in real time. This is Marcus Webb reporting from the destroyer Relentless, a young journalist said into his camera. In approximately 6 hours, the human fleet will begin its assault on Zytharian military positions. The mood here is somber but determined. These sailors, soldiers, and officers know they're part of something historic. They're also painfully aware of why they're here. He pulled up an image of Sarah Mitchell's memorial that had been erected in every human city. 43,000 faces are watching us from Earth. 43,000 reasons why this fleet is here. The question everyone is asking is, what kind of species will we be after this? Will we be conquerors, or will we be defenders who were pushed too far? The 24 hours expired. All ships, this is Admiral Rodriguez. Operation Reckoning begins now. Target priority is Drax's station. All ships, weapons free on military targets only. If they want to surrender, let them. If they want to fight, end them. The fleet split into 3 massive groups. The largest force, over 150,000 ships, moved toward Drax's station. The second group headed for the Kelthro shipyards. The third remained in reserve, ready to respond to any unexpected threats. Drax's station was a massive military complex, home to the Zytharian Fleet Academy, their strategic command center, and nearly 3,000 warships. It hung in orbit around a gas giant, its weapons, platforms, and shield generators making it one of the most heavily defended positions in the Empire. The Zatharian commander of Drax's station was Admiral Kresh, a veteran of 40 years who had fought in dozens of border skirmishes. He watched the human fleet approach with a mixture of disbelief and grudging respect. "They're really going to attack," his tactical officer said unnecessarily. "Yes," Kresh replied. "Send one final message to Fleet Command. Tell them that Drax's station will not surrender. We are Zytharian warriors. We will show these humans what it means to face a superior military force. Sir, we're outnumbered 50-1. Then we'll make sure they remember the cost of this battle." The human fleet entered weapons range. Drax's station is powering weapons, sensors reported. They're not surrendering. Captain Santos took a deep breath. "All weapons, fire on my command. Target their shield generators first. Once shields are down, focus on weapons platforms." Across the human fleet, thousands of ships locked onto their designated targets. The fire control systems hummed with deadly purpose. Missile tubes loaded, energy weapons charged, point defense systems activated. This is Captain Santos to all hands. Battle stations. This is not a drill. Fire on designated targets. The space around Drax's station erupted in light. Human missiles, thousands of them, streaked across the darkness. Zatharian point defense systems tried to intercept, but there were simply too many. The first wave crashed into the station's shields, creating massive explosions that lit up the gas giant below. The Zatharian ships launched their counterattack. Their heavy plasma cannons were powerful, capable of destroying a human destroyer with a single hit. Several human ships took direct hits, their shields failing, their hulls rupturing. But for every human ship that fell, 100 more pressed forward. "Direct hit on shield generator 7, Tactical reported. "Their defensive grid is failing." The battle was unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. The Zatharians fought with the desperation of warriors defending their honor. They were skilled, experienced, and equipped with weapons that had been refined over centuries of warfare, but they were hopelessly outnumbered. Human ships swarmed around the station like angry insects, each one firing precisely, coordinating with surgical precision. For every Zytharian weapon that fired, 10 human weapons responded. The station shields flickered and failed. Its weapons platforms were methodically destroyed. Its defending ships were overwhelmed and destroyed. Admiral Kresh watched his command center fall apart around him. Alarms blared. Systems failed. His crew worked frantically to keep fighting, but it was hopeless. "Sir, we've lost 80% of our defensive capabilities," his tactical officer reported. "Hull breaches on decks 7 through 23. Life support failing in sections B through F. We have to surrender." Kresh looked at the tactical display showing the human fleet. So many ships, so much firepower. And this was just one of their battle groups. "Open a channel to the human commander," he said quietly. Captain Santos received the transmission personally. "This is Admiral Kresh of Drax's station. We surrender. Please cease fire. We surrender." "All ships cease fire," Santos ordered immediately. "Drax's station has surrendered. Medical teams prepare to assist with casualties. Marines prepare for station occupation." The firing stopped. The sudden silence was almost as shocking as the battle had been. Drax's station hung in space, battered and broken, but still intact. Of the 3,000 Zatharian ships that had defended it, less than 500 remained. But they remained. Across human space, people watched in stunned silence as the first major battle of the war ended in less than 2 hours. The Zatharian military, which had seemed so powerful, so unstoppable, had been crushed with methodical efficiency. On the bridge of the Valiant, Admiral Rodriguez received reports from all 3 battle groups. Drax's station has surrendered. Kelthro shipyards have surrendered. Minimal casualties on our side. Zytharian losses are severe but not catastrophic. They fought hard, but they couldn't overcome the numerical advantage. What about Zythar Prime? No response yet. Their fleet is still intact around the capital. Rodriguez nodded slowly. "Then that's where we go next. But first, make sure all surrendered forces are treated properly. Medical aid, food, shelter. We're not monsters." "Yes, sir." As the human fleet regrouped and prepared for the final push toward the Zytharian capital, messages began flooding in from across the galaxy. Some species expressed outrage at human aggression. Others quietly expressed satisfaction that someone had finally stood up to Zatharian bullying. And in the ruins of Drax's station, Admiral Kresh sat in his damaged command center and realized something that would change everything. The humans weren't unstoppable because of their technology. They weren't winning because of superior weapons or tactics. They were winning because they had shown up with such overwhelming force that resistance was futile. They had planned this down to the smallest detail. They had built their fleet specifically to ensure they would never need to negotiate from weakness. The Sitharians had murdered 43,000 humans to prove they were strong. Humanity had brought 300,000 warships to prove they were stronger. And the galaxy would never forget the lesson. Zythar Prime was beautiful. That was the first thing Captain Maria Santos thought as the human fleet emerged from quantum space at the edge of the system. The planet glowed with purple and blue. Oceans, vast continents covered in cities that sparkled like jewels. 3 moons orbited the world, each one home to massive orbital stations. This was the heart of the Sitharian Empire, a civilization that had stood for over 1,000 years. And now, 300,000 human warships surrounded it. "Captain, receiving transmission from Zetharian High Command," the communications officer reported. "It's High Commander Zerth himself." "Put it through." The alien commander appeared on screen, and Santos was struck by how different he looked from their previous conversations. The arrogance was gone. The certainty was gone. What remained was something she had never expected to see in a Scytharian's eyes. Fear. "Captain Santos," Zrath said carefully, "I am authorized by the Imperial Council to discuss terms of surrender." Before Santos could respond, Admiral Rodriguez's face appeared in a secondary window. He was monitoring all communications with the Zetharian leadership. "High Commander," Rodriguez said, 3 days ago, you told me that the Zetharian Empire would never surrender to a species that had barely been in space for 2 centuries. What changed?" Zarth's scales rippled with what might have been shame. "We underestimated you. We believed our military traditions and experience would be enough. We were wrong." "Yes, you were."
"But that's not why we're here."
"We're here because you murdered 43,000 civilians. Men, women, and children who never threatened you, who were simply trying to build a life on a distant world. You celebrated their deaths. You called them vermin. Do you remember that?" "Yes," Zrath said quietly. "I remember." "Good. Because I want you to understand something. Every human in this fleet remembers too. Every person on Earth remembers. Every colony, every station, every settlement across human space remembers. We will carry the memory of New Haven for generations. And we're going to make sure you never forget it either." Rodriguez leaned forward. "Here are our terms. The Zetharian military will surrender completely and unconditionally. Every warship, every weapons platform, every orbital defense station will be placed under human control. All military personnel involved in the attack on New Haven will be turned over for trial. The Zetharian Empire will pay reparations to the families of every victim. And you will dismantle your offensive military capabilities and maintain only defensive forces under Galactic Council oversight." That's the end of the Empire," Zarath said. "No, it's the end of the Scytharian military empire. Your people can still trade, still build, still live. But you'll do it peacefully, or you won't do it at all." There was a long silence. Santos watched Zrath's face, seeing the internal struggle. This was a warrior civilization being asked to stop being warriors. It went against everything they believed about themselves. "And if we refuse," Zrath asked, Rodriguez didn't hesitate, "then we'll reduce every military installation in your empire to rubble. We won't touch civilian populations, but your military will cease to exist. Either you surrender it intact, or we destroy it completely. Choose." Then Zrath straightened his posture, a gesture of formal decision. In Scytharian culture, "I will take your terms to the Imperial Council. They will meet within the hour." On the Valiant's bridge, Admiral Rodriguez turned to Ambassador Chen Wei, who had been silently observing. "What do you think?" he asked. "I think they're going to surrender," Chen replied. "They've lost too much already." Draxus Station was their military academy, their pride. Kelthros was their industrial heart. They have nothing left to fight with except their home fleet, and that's not enough against what we brought. The Galactic Council is going to have strong opinions about our terms. We didn't ask for this war. We asked to be left alone. The Zytharians chose to attack a defenseless colony. Now they get to live with the consequences. Rodriguez nodded, but Santos could see the weight on his shoulders. This wasn't a man who enjoyed war or took pleasure in victory. This was someone who understood that sometimes terrible things had to be done to prevent even more terrible things from happening. An hour later, the response came. High Commander's wrath appeared again, but this time he was flanked by members of the Imperial Council, the highest leaders of the Zetharian Empire, beings who had ruled over 47 systems, who commanded billions of subjects, who had never before bent to another species. Admiral Rodriguez, Zrath said formally, the Imperial Council has voted to accept your terms. The Zetharian Empire surrenders unconditionally. The words seemed to echo across the fleet. 300,000 human crews heard them. Back on Earth, billions of people heard them. Across the galaxy, every species that had been watching this conflict heard them. The Zetharian Empire had fallen. We require proof of surrender, Rodriguez said. Begin powering down all military vessels. Transmit access codes for all weapons platforms. Prepare to receive boarding parties. It will be done, Zarath replied. Then he paused. Admiral, before we proceed, I must ask, what will happen to my people? To our civilians? Rodriguez's expression softened slightly. Nothing. We meant what we said. This is about your military, not your civilization. Your people will be protected, fed, and allowed to continue their lives. We're not conquerors. We're not here to subjugate you. We're here to ensure you never do to anyone else what you did to New Haven. Over the next 3 days, the surrender process unfolded. Zypharian warships powered down their weapons and opened their airlocks to human boarding parties. Military installations transmitted their security codes. Weapons platforms went dark. The process was methodical, professional, and surprisingly peaceful. Captain Santos led a boarding party to one of the Zetharian heavy cruisers. The ship's crew stood at attention as the humans entered, their faces showing a mixture of shame and relief. The war was over. They had survived. I am Captain Santos of the Human Navy, she announced. As of now, this vessel is under human authority. Your crew will be treated with respect and dignity. No one will be harmed. Is that understood? The Zetharian ship captain nodded. It is understood. Captain Santos, may I ask a question? Go ahead. Why did you come with so many ships? You could have defeated us with half this fleet, perhaps less. Why bring such overwhelming force? Santos considered the question. It was a good one, and she knew the answer would matter. Because we wanted to make sure this war ended quickly and decisively. Every day of war means more lives lost, more families destroyed, more chances for things to escalate beyond control. We brought 300,000 ships because we wanted to make resistance pointless. We wanted to make it clear that fighting us would accomplish nothing except more death. She paused. But more than that, we wanted to send a message to the entire galaxy. We wanted every species out there to know that if you attack a human colony, if you murder our civilians, we won't negotiate. We won't accept apologies or excuses. We will bring every ship we have and we will not stop until justice is done. That's the message of New Haven. That's why we're here. The Zytharian captain was silent for a moment. I understand. For what it's worth, Captain, many of us did not support the attack on your colony. We knew it was wrong, but we followed orders. That's what soldiers do. Yes, Santos said quietly. That's what soldiers do. But soldiers also have to live with the consequences of the orders they follow. And now your entire empire has to live with the consequences of attacking New Haven. The occupation of Zytharian military assets continued smoothly. Human forces were professional, treating surrendered personnel with dignity while maintaining firm control. Medical teams helped with wounded Zytharian soldiers. Food and supplies were distributed to bases that were running low. It was an occupation, but it was also a demonstration of human values. Not everyone in the fleet was happy with how things ended. Sergeant Marcus Chen stood in the hangar of the destroyer Relentless, looking at the Zetharian prisoners being processed. His sister had lived on New Haven. She had been a doctor, helping colonists who got sick or injured. She had died in the first orbital bombardment. This doesn't feel like justice, he said to his friend Corporal Sarah Rodriguez. What did you expect? She asked. We'd line them all up and execute them? I expected, I don't know, something more than them just surrendering and going home. They're not going home, Marcus. Their empire is broken. Their military is dismantled. Every species in the galaxy knows what happened when they attacked us. And the ones who planned the attack on New Haven, they're going to trial. They'll face real justice. And the rest of them just get to live normal lives after what they did? Sarah put a hand on his shoulder. The rest of them were following orders, just like we're following orders now. I know it's not satisfying. I know you want revenge. But what we're doing here is bigger than revenge. We're establishing a principle that matters more than our anger. What principle? That we're better than they are. The trials began 2 weeks later. The Galactic Council, despite their earlier reluctance, agreed to oversee the proceedings. The human delegation insisted on transparency. Every session would be broadcast across the galaxy. Everyone would see justice being done. High Commander Zarath was the first to face trial. He sat in the defendant's chair, his scaled hands clasped together as the charges were read. High Commander Zarath, you are charged with ordering the deliberate destruction of a civilian colony, resulting in the deaths of 43,000 sentient beings. You are charged with crimes against sapient life, with violation of the Galactic Convention on Civilian Protection, and with conspiracy to commit genocide. How do you plead? Zarth stood slowly. I plead guilty to all charges. The courtroom fell silent. Ambassador Chen Wei, representing humanity at the trials, stepped forward. High Commander, you understand that these charges carry severe penalties, potentially including execution under galactic law? I understand, Zarth replied. I have no defense for what I did. I ordered the attack on New Haven because I believed humans were weak, because I wanted to demonstrate Zytharian power, because I thought there would be no consequences. I was wrong on every count. He turned to face the gallery, where representatives from every major species sat watching. What I did was not warfare. It was murder. I killed children, families, innocent people who had done nothing to threaten the Zytharian Empire. I celebrated their deaths. I called them vermin. I deserve whatever punishment this court decides. The trial continued for 3 days. Evidence was presented. Recordings of Zrath's orders were played. Testimonies from Zytharian officers who had objected to the attack were heard, and in the end, the verdict was unanimous. Guilty on all counts. The sentence was life imprisonment to be served under Galactic Council supervision. Zrath would spend the rest of his life in a maximum security facility, a living reminder of the cost of genocide. 15 other Zytharian officers faced similar trials. All were found guilty. All received long sentences. But the most important moment came at the end of the proceedings, when the Galactic Council issued a formal resolution. Ambassador Kelleth of the Centaurians, who had once urged caution and restraint, stood before the assembled representatives. The events surrounding New Haven have forced this council to confront uncomfortable truths, he said. We allowed political considerations to blind us to moral imperatives. We prioritized economic arrangements over the lives of innocent beings. We failed. He paused, his 3 eyes scanning the room. But we have also witnessed something remarkable. The human response to genocide was not genocide in return. They brought overwhelming military force, yes. They devastated the Scytharian military, yes. But they did not harm civilian populations. They provided medical aid to wounded enemies. They treated surrendered forces with dignity. They demonstrated that it is possible to seek justice without becoming unjust. Caliph activated a display showing the New Haven Memorial. Therefore, this council hereby adopts the New Haven Protocol. Any species that commits deliberate genocide against a civilian population of any other species will face immediate sanctions, military intervention if necessary, and criminal prosecution of all involved parties. No economic arrangement, no political consideration, no strategic alliance will be allowed to shield perpetrators of genocide from justice. The resolution passed unanimously. 6 months after the surrender, Admiral Rodriguez stood in a small park on Earth. It was a quiet place, far from the military bases and government buildings where he usually spent his time. Around him, 43,000 trees had been planted, each one bearing a small plaque with a name from New Haven. Sarah Mitchell's tree was near the center of the memorial. Rodriguez placed his hand on its small trunk, feeling the life within it. We kept our promise, he said quietly. We made sure no one forgot you. We made sure what happened to you mattered. He stood there for a long time, watching the leaves rustle in the wind. The galaxy had changed. The Zytharian Empire was now a member of the Galactic Council in good standing. But it was a different empire. Peaceful, trading, building instead of conquering. The New Haven Protocol had already prevented 2 potential genocides, with Council intervention stopping conflicts before they could escalate. And humanity? Humanity had proven something important. They had shown that being peaceful didn't mean being weak. That choosing diplomacy didn't mean being incapable of war. That building farms and schools and parks didn't mean you couldn't build the largest fleet in galactic history when necessary. Captain Santos, now promoted to Rear Admiral, visited the memorial regularly. She would walk among the trees, reading names, remembering that these weren't just numbers. These were teachers and farmers and children and grandparents. These were people who had died simply because they existed in the wrong place at the wrong time. "Does it ever get easier?" a young officer asked her one day. "No," Santos replied honestly. "And it shouldn't. The day we stop feeling the weight of what we did, the day we stop remembering why we did it, that's the day we become what we fought against." She looked at the memorial, at the living legacy of New Haven. 300,000 warships, she said. "We brought 300,000 warships to avenge 43,000 lives." Some people say that was excessive. Some say it was necessary. I think it was both. We showed the galaxy what happens when you cross the line. We made sure no one will ever cross it again. And if they do? Santos smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Then we'll do it again. As many times as necessary, because that's what the New Haven Protocol really means. It means we'll never again stand by while innocent people are murdered. It means we'll never again choose politics over justice. It means we'll remember always the cost of forgetting our humanity in the name of convenience." The young officer nodded, understanding. As Santos walked away from the memorial, she passed a group of children on a school trip. They were learning about New Haven, about Sarah Mitchell, about why 43,000 trees stood in this park. "Why did they bring so many ships?" one child asked their teacher. The teacher knelt down to the child's level. "Because they wanted to make absolutely certain that nothing like New Haven could ever happen again. They wanted everyone in the galaxy to know that humanity would stand up for what's right, no matter the cost." "Did it work?" "Yes," the teacher said, looking at the memorial. "It worked. The galaxy learned, and we learned, too. We learned that peace is worth fighting for, that justice matters more than comfort, and that sometimes the only way to prevent war is to show that you're willing and able to wage it." In the years that followed, the New Haven Memorial became one of the most visited places on Earth. People came from all over human space and beyond. Some came to mourn, some came to learn, some came to remember. And in the archives of the Galactic Council, the record of the Scytherian War was preserved with a simple notation: the war in which humanity demonstrated that pacifism is a choice, not a weakness. The war that established the New Haven Protocol. The war that changed the galaxy. High Commander Wrath in his cell spent his days writing. He was compiling a history of the war from the Scytherian perspective, a cautionary tale for any species that might consider following the path his empire had taken. "What will you call it?" his guard asked one day. Wrath looked at the pages he had written, at the words that tried to explain how his civilization had fallen so far. "I call it the price of arrogance," he said, "because that's what it was. We were arrogant enough to believe we could kill without consequence. We were arrogant enough to think human kindness meant human weakness. We were arrogant enough to forget that every civilization, no matter how peaceful, can become terrifying when pushed too far." He added another line to his manuscript. "They came with 300,000 warships, not because they were conquerors, not because they were cruel, but because they had learned the hard lesson that overwhelming force can end a war before it truly begins. And in doing so, they saved more lives than they took. The galaxy had learned its lesson. Humanity had learned its lesson. And in a park on Earth, 43,000 trees grew tall and strong, a living memorial to the people who had died and the principles that had survived. The war was over. Justice had been served. And the galaxy would never forget the day that humanity showed everyone what it truly meant to be strong.